Hey everybody, welcome to Let's Be Crude. I'm Mitch Fillet. I'm a professor of finance and economics at one of the nation's top business schools. And what I want to talk about today is crude oil, a very important energy asset that powers virtually every economy in the world. So let's take a look at what's going on with crude oil. Everyone knows the global stock markets have collapsed. There's been shutdown of major economies throughout the world, the most notable being China. There's rumors the US might have to shut down in the near future. All of this is causing stocks to go down, oil prices to go down. There's a belief that, we're not going to do anything. We're not going to go on cruise lines, we're not going to go on airlines, we're not going to buy cars, we're not going to use the cars we've got. And of course, if that all happens, that pushes us very quickly from almost prosperity where we were through recession and very quickly into something that looks like depression. Sort of mirroring what happened in 2007, 8, and 9, where we went from happy days are here again in 2006 to the end of the world in 2009. So let's look at crude, right? It went from over $50 a barrel to about $30 a barrel in about 3 weeks. There's a battle going on between Russia and the Saudi Arabian kingdom over the price of crude. And Saudi Arabia is essentially said to Russia, stop pumping, and if you don't, we're going to lower the price to a level where it's going to hurt. Some analysts are predicting $20 a barrel. And remember that oil is a finite resource, right? It is also generally found in places very far away from where it's consumed. So the supply chain on oil is very important, very expensive, and very long. So if we look at part of that, you'll get a sense of what's going on. When oil comes out of the ground, it has to go somewhere, and eventually it winds up at a refinery. The refinery takes that smelly, slippery black liquid and it turns it into fuel that you can put in your car, your planes, your trains, your homes, and you can fire up all those devices. Well, once it hits the refinery, once it's made into fuel, it then is shipped to the consumer. That's you and I, that's governments, that's armies, that's whole nations are built on the consumption of energy assets that come out of the ground. One of those nations, no surprise, is China. Major automobile business, major use of oil, and obviously the other large economy that's a major user of energy products is the United States. So if we shut down, on top of China shutting down, if there's no demand for oil, not only does the price of oil have to go down because there's an oversupply, but we then run into a supply chain problem. And that's what we're starting to see. Because when the oil comes out of the ground, generally the first step beyond that in the supply chain is a big oil tanker. And if you haven't seen pictures of these things, go up on YouTube and take a look or just do a Google search of how big these ships are. They have millions and millions of barrels of oil stuffed into them, or really hundreds of thousands of barrels of oil stuffed into them. And they very slowly make their way from where the oil is taken out of the ground to refineries, which are much closer to the consumer. So it's an odd set of circumstances that oil, which is effectively dead dinosaurs, it is very far from where the consumers live who need the refined energy products. And so the sort of the middleman in the process is the oil transporter, which is pipeline to generally to ship, and then ship to refiner, and then refiner to truck, and then truck to gas station or home delivery or whatever. So that's the supply chain for oil. It's all breaking down. The demand for oil is dropping. People aren't buying oil fast enough. It's clogging up the supply chain. The refineries don't have enough storage. And the producers at some point will not be able to sell their oil. That's the result of the fight between Russia and the Saudi Arabian royal kingdom. At some point, oil prices, which has already sort of collapsed from 50 down to 30, could collapse again and go from 30 down to 20 or even 15. At that point, it's in free fall. We don't know. The flip side of that is that if China gets their economy back online, if we don't have to shut down our economy because after a couple of weeks of sort of quarantine, the virus doesn't break out all over the place, or if it does, it's containable, and we go back about our business. By June, my bet is that the world economies straighten themselves out. That means that the U.S. economy refires or fires back up, the Chinese economy refires, and Europe, which may be the worst victim here with this virus, may take a little bit longer, but honestly, if you look at Europe, those economies are not in the best of shape anyway. They're not big consumers. They're really more savers than they are consumers. And so, the world economies get saved by the US and China coming back online. Europe's definitely a help, but there are certain countries in Europe that are now consuming, that will consume in the future. The most notable are the United Kingdom and Germany. And you can throw France in there. Spain's not much of an economy. Ireland's not much of an economy. Greece was darn near dead 3 years ago, so they're sort of back online. You need the US and you need China to fire the global economies. We buy all sorts of stuff. They buy all sorts of stuff. My bet is they come back online, we come back online, and we get this short-term burst of the consumption of energy products, especially if all this happens by May. Here we are in March. It's not crazy to think that by mid-May, late May, by Memorial Day weekend, we're back online, we're traveling, we're getting in the car, and we're going places. Here's the unknown. Take a look at the price of Tesla stock. Tesla's stock is telling us that the demand for electric vehicles is going to continue to grow. And if in the course of this oil price collapse, the US government decides to help electric vehicles because it's good for the environment, meaning like they put back in the tax credit for buying electric cars, there'll be a bigger, quicker, larger shift from gasoline-fired vehicles to electric-powered vehicles. And if that happens, that's probably the next shoe to drop for crude products. So my belief is crude, $30 a barrel, could go to 20. I believe it will rebound sharply from there, could go back up to 40. I don't think it'll go to 50 because there are too many nations that are awash in supply. They've got to get this stuff sold, and it'll probably take right through the summer. So by fall, we could see some stabilization in crude prices, but unfortunately, the world sort of stops consuming oil when it gets cold. I mean, more oil is used to heat a home, but less oil is used to drive a car because people tend not to drive in bad weather. So, looking at the future, $30 a barrel becomes 20 by Memorial Day weekend. Oil then rebounds sharply from 20 to 40 by Halloween. And then it just goes sideways from Halloween straight through till probably early spring. And then it depends on what kind of winter we have. If we have another very warm winter, if this climate crisis is real, then, or not real, I don't mean to say that. If the climate crisis repeats itself and we have another warm winter, then people might drive more, and that would be good for oil, as long, again, as the U.S. government doesn't interfere by putting some sort of tax incentive on the purchase of electric vehicles. And I have no insight in that. I don't think they'll do that. Honestly, the oil and gas business is very important to this country for a number of reasons, including domestic employment. So, they're probably not going to kill the oil and gas business, but over time, you can see what's happening. Over time, there's going to be a continued move towards electric vehicles, and as that happens, at some point, especially if President Trump's a one-term president, and we get a pro-electric vehicle president in the White House, which might be whoever the Democrats are going to run, it might be the next president beyond that. At some point, we will reinstitute the tax credit to buy electric vehicles. When that happens, you can say goodbye to oil. All right, so let's be crude. It's coming back. Stay tuned. I'll be trying to do this once a week, once every other week, talking about specific elements within the financial markets. This week it's crude. Probably next week it'll be stocks. Talk to you soon.